Now, without wasting much of time, we're already, passed up the time, the decided time. But nevertheless, we had a very engaging and good session going on. So now, going ahead, the last session of the day, but uh, definitely not the least, we have stayed one of the best for the last C.A. Shankar Narayanan ji, who have been associated with Reptel from past few years and a very reputed faculty in from Chennai. So he is going to take issues related to documentation. Again, a very practical topic, the practical difficulties which we face in the documentation, be it e-way bill, invoices, debit credit note, etc. To introduce Shankar sir, he's a chartered accountant and cost and management accountant with more than 15 years of rich experience in financial and taxation compliances, spanning across diverse sectors, including bank, service sector, manufacturing sector, with specialization in GST, customs, and foreign trade. He is the founder partner at GPVS and Associate. It is a Chennai-based CA firm heading the indirect taxation compliances, advisory, and litigation vertical. With this, I pass the mic to CA Shankar sir. And over to you, sir. We have around 15 to 20 minutes. I'm very sorry that we have less time left for you, but I hope you will do justice in that time. So thank you so much for coming to our platform. Over to you.
Thank you, and good evening to all who have joined virtually and who are also attending through YouTube. The challenges or the issues which are mounting because of documentation and related provisions is what we are going to see. I'll have to keep my pace a bit rapid for obvious reasons. So let's look at the initial challenge with respect to e-way bill. Now, e-way bill, is it a problem for me? If that is a question somebody is asking, certainly yes. And now that the department related audits have started happening, they have started asking for e-way bill reconciliation. How does that e-way bill reconciliation happen? Now, that is something which is in our hands. That is, from 1st of April 2018 onwards, e-way bill has been fully functional. Hence, our turnovers as per e-way bill has to be matched with our GSTR1, is what is the expectation of the department. And in some of the cases, they have started issuing notices as well, seeking as to why I cannot take the e-way bill turnover as your turnover. So that is where e-way bill is a clear and present problem. And inside that e-way bill, what are those key issues? One is with respect to the job work transactions. Now, the point in job work transactions, which many of us are missing, is that when goods are sent for job work, of course, they are sent through delivery challan, and when they are received back, again, they must be received through a delivery challan. Now, the first part of the transaction happens properly, where when I am sending it, I send it through a delivery challan, so it reaches my customer, it reaches my job worker who works on the product. Now, if I have sent a goods which is worth 100 rupees from my premises to the job worker premises, it should go at 100 rupee value in my DC. And when it is returned back by them, after adding a value of 5 rupees, then the good should come back in a DC with the value being mentioned as 105. But this is not happening when the goods are coming back. The delivery challan which is raised by the job worker, many a times in the past, what they have done is they have raised a delivery challan, all right, but in the delivery challan, they would have mentioned only 5 rupees because they think that is their invoice value. That is their value addition, but that is their invoice value which they mention in the e-way bill, which is wrong. So this has resulted in an e-way bill mismatch, and job work outward has to be matched with the job work inward. Where is that requirement? Job work records, there is a requirement, and ITC 04 is the return where it needs to be captured. If this had not been done, yes, we have an issue with respect to job work reconciliation. Now, will job work become a problem? 100% yes, because though they have exempted the return filing, the ITC 04 statement filing up to 1st of April 2019, but still the record maintenance under Rule 56 is not dispensed with. It is still there. Hence, this reconciliation will prove to be costly, because if my job worker has sent it at 5 rupees and I have sent it at 100 rupees, department can very well say this 95 I will add it back as value, meaning it is part of your outward tax liability, output tax liability, and you will have to pay GST on that. So that is one of the key issues that we may have to address. If it has been done wrongly, ensure that we are doing a reconciliation and we are able to substantiate. One of the issues in e-waybill is this. The second major issue which I have come across, which we must be very cautious about, is not the e-waybill that is raised by us, the e-waybills which are raised on us. Because in the e-waybill portal, one will be able to see what are all the e-waybills which are raised on us as well. Why should I pay attention to it? There has been a huge departmental intelligence activity where the larger corporates have been penalized from this respect. What had happened is GST number is something like a public property now. Anybody who knows your PAN can find out what are your GST numbers. If I do not know your PAN, all I have to do is come and stand before your name board. Wherever your name board is there, GST number is supposed to be mentioned there. From that, I'll pick the number, and from that, I'll pick the number from the PAN, and from there, I'll be able to find out how many states you have registration. What has happened in that case is somebody has taken all the GST numbers of that person. Scrupulously, they have sat and raised e-waybills on those numbers without this company placing an order on them. They have dispatched something like crores of values of goods to them only by e-waybill. They have also raised GSTR1 in which they have reported it. Now, this company, what they have not done is they have not exercised the option of rejecting the e-waybill. All they were bothered about was whatever I have raised as outward e-waybill, is it matching with my GSTR1? Agreed. That is one part of the reconciliation. What is missing here is what somebody has raised on me. Is it a person who is authorized by me is only raising on me? Is it my vendor who's raising an e-waybill on me? If my person who's raising an e-waybill on me is not my vendor, then I will have to reject it. I have an option to reject it in the e-waybill portal, and the timelines within which I can reject it is 72 hours. So there is a longer duration that is given to the recipient to react. Even we cannot say in the weekend we have missed it. We have 72 hours, which is 3 days. Friday night, if they are raising an e-waybill, even on Monday we can reject it. This was the question which was asked by the intelligence officers repeatedly, saying, why you did not reject the e-waybill? Because in GSTR1, if they are reporting, it is coming into my 2A. I cannot do anything called as rejection in my 2A. But there they should have identified. But the first line of defense, even before GSTR1 is reported, is e-waybill. I think this is where they have missed, and this is where many people are misusing the e-waybills against our name. So please be aware, and this is one of the issues which is growing in e-waybill. Now moving on to the next part, the issue relating to debit notes. Now in GST, what we need to do is we need to rethink our accounting itself, because when we studied accounting, all we have learned is accounting, who can raise a debit note? Anybody can raise a debit note. But in GST, it is not so. In GST, as per section 34, a debit note can be raised only by a supplier. Same applies for a credit note as well. A debit or a credit note shall be raised only by a supplier. Fine, I am a supplier, I will raise a debit or credit note accordingly. That is a responsibility of the supplier. As per my responsibility, I will raise a debit or credit note. Now let's focus our attention on the debit note. Why would a supplier raise a debit note, or what would be the impact of a debit note raised by a supplier? If a supplier is raising a debit note, it naturally increases the amount. What amount does it increase? It increases the amount of value of supply. For example, I have made a supply in January 2020. Retrospective price increase has been accepted between me and my customer. So my customer says, give me a debit note. I am giving a debit note today. Today, August 2021, roughly more than 1 year and 8 months later, or 1 year and 7 months later, I am giving a debit note for that invoice. Can I give? Yes. Is there a time limit for debit note? No. I can give a debit note anytime. So I have given a debit note. Now what happens is, when I am giving a debit note now, the original supply was for, let's say, 10 lakh rupees, and I have charged GST of 18,000 on it. I would have paid 18% on it. So 1,80,000 I would have paid to the department. Now, when I am raising a debit note for another 2 lakhs, now my total consideration becomes 12 lakhs. So my tax liability stands on 12 lakhs, not on 10 lakhs. Agreed. When I am raising a debit note, I will charge GST of 18% on this 12 lakhs also, 2 lakhs also. Consequently, I will end up paying 36,000 to the department now. Yes, but it is not just 36,000 that we are liable to pay to the department. It is 36,000 plus interest. Interest from when? interest from the due date of January 2020, because January 2020 is when you have made the original supply, and this amount is an additional consideration which is received now for the transaction. So interest is applicable. Now, is it spelled out in the GST law? It is not spelled out in the GST law. Only scenario where we will not pay interest are covered under 12 subsection 6 and 13 subsection 6. 12 subsection 6 covers the goods related scenario, and services related scenario is covered in section 13. So apart from these scenarios, what is covered in these two subsections are interest, penalty and late fees, which we claim by way of a debit note. On those, we don't have to pay any interest. All we need to do is we need to take it into consideration, or we need to pay only when we receive. We don't have to pay along with interest from the original date of the time of supply. But in case of these, that is the debit notes for retrospective price increase, there is an inbuilt interest element that needs to be paid, and it is very much in line with the central excise law which was in place earlier. So the practice continues, and many of the cases assessees are not paying it, but there is a certain liability. Either as auditors we may have to qualify for the liability portion if we are doing it as a GST audit, else we may have to sensitize them for making a provision for payment of this interest on retrospective price increase related debit notes. Moving on to the next part of credit notes. Now, similar to a debit note, a credit note can be raised only by a supplier, no doubt on that. But the issues around credit notes are, I'm taking two types of issues around the credit notes. One is with respect to the post-supply discount. The earlier speaker also had touched upon this topic of post-supply discount, section 15 subsection 3 clause B, which talks about it, which puts in certain conditions for being eligible. Now, that is not the point of discussion. Now, the point of discussion here is that the post-supply discounts in a credit note, are they given as discounts, or are they given as adjustment to the original value of the supply? Well, that is the key question. If post-supply discounts are given for adjusting the value of the transaction, the post-supply discount satisfying the condition that is 15 subsection 3 clause B, eligible, allowed. But if the credit notes are given not for the purpose of adjusting the value of the transaction, but as a consideration for a separate supply, how can it happen? I'll take a simple example of a car dealer. The car dealer has procured the car from the car manufacturer. He is going to sell it further. Now, the car manufacturer has supplied the car to him, charging him 28% GST and cess as may be applicable. Now, subsequently, the car manufacturer is laying a condition on the car dealer saying that you should conduct a mela in particular places and send me the photographs so that I will remunerate you for that. They are conducting a mela and they are coming and telling the car manufacturer that, see, these are the proofs that we have conducted and this is my expenditure. Now, these expenditures, instead of making a payment to them, asking them to raise an invoice, asking the dealer to raise the invoice on the car manufacturer, the car manufacturers are giving a credit note. Now, when they give a credit note for this transaction, what happens is they are actually reducing their GST at the rate of 28%, because that is the rate at which they have made their supply. So by giving a credit note on this transaction, which is actually not an adjustment to a supply, which is what is contemplated in section 34 for being a credit note, instead they are going in the opposite direction, and where it is a supply in itself, but that is getting remunerated by way of a credit note, which is grossly wrong. And that can be challenged by the department at any point of time. Hence, whenever we see a credit note, especially with respect to post-supply discounts, all we have to exercise caution is whether it is in credit note in nature or whether it is a consideration for a supply. That would determine the acceptability or otherwise of that credit note. And the next part of the credit note related issue that I have come across is the credit notes are to be issued only by the supplier. Now, I am the one who is the recipient. From my perspective, what is the problem that I see in a credit note? Now, my supplier is raising a credit note on me. What happens is it comes and gets reflected in my GSTR 2B or 2A. Here again, we are focused, or most of us are focused from one direction. That is, whatever is booked in my books, whether it is matching with my 2B or 2A, is the attention that we pay, or that is the respect that we give to 2B or 2A. So the driver for us is our GST books. In my books of accounts, if I have got a list of 100 invoices, I try to find those invoices in the GSTR 2B, whether they are appearing there or not. but I think we have a much bigger implication or a much higher implication for the credit note which are issued by my supplier. Why would that be? Because if my supplier is giving a credit note that is reflected in my GSTR 2B, to that extent, I become ineligible for my input tax credit. Now, can I say that unless I book it in my books, why should I reverse that input tax credit? I don't think it will be applicable in all the scenarios, especially if my supplier happens to be a service provider. Let's say the supplier happens to be a chartered accountant. He has charged me audit fees on me. And subsequently, we have agreed that audit fees is to be reduced. He has reduced the audit fee and he has issued a credit note. But what I have not done is I have not accepted the credit note. I have not accounted the credit note in my books. I have taken the credit based upon the original invoice that he has issued. But now in my 2B, I am seeing the credit note. What am I supposed to do? Though that credit note's corresponding entry is not there in my books, I am supposed to reverse that ITC. I'm not supposed to take that ITC. If I am taking that ITC, yes, we are in a state of bother where we are availing more credit than what we are entitled to. So the GSTR 2A, 2B related reconciliation, though the focus that we have is from the angle of whatever is there in my books, whether it is appearing in my GSTR 2A or 2B generated from the portal, we should also have the responsibility to check whether whatever is resulting in reduction of my input tax credit, because it is appearing in my GSTR 2B, should I do the corresponding adjustment while availing the credit for the month? Because though I have not accounted for it, I know very well from the 2B that I am not entitled to. So that is what is something which we need to take care in case of credit notes when we are the recipients of the credit notes. So as promised, I've tried rushing, and that is all I have for discussing with you. Thanks a lot for your patient hearing. Over to the organizers. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for your quick presentation. And I think all the documentation you covered in a few slides. It was very interesting to listen to you. Thank you for coming to